Not only that, she cut off all contact.
This is Interlock. It's extremely easy to use, very secure, and best of all.
And to punish her for that, he broke into her house on Valentine's Day. He broke in there with a syringe loaded with a lethal dose of nicotine. And then he waited for her until she got home. He waited there for hours for her. When she arrived, she went up to her third-story bedroom and got caught by surprise by the defendant. He immediately attacked her, as evidence will show. He strangled her. And then her roommate, who was asleep in the bottom level, heard the screaming and yelled out, "Leave her alone." The evidence is going to show the defendant panicked at that moment, took Amie Harwick's debilitated body over to her bedroom balcony, lifted her up over the balcony, and dropped her to her death. You can hear that she suffered injuries to her body. Her pelvis was shattered, liver damage, brain damage, and the defendant fled the scene. Now, this opening statement is a roadmap. It's a preview of the evidence we expect to show you in this trial. And the reason why it's good to pay attention to these previews is because when we call witnesses, we are not able to call witnesses in the order you would expect them as things happen. We're bringing in witnesses from out of the county. We have to accommodate their schedule. So you will hear witnesses who may have known something that happened later in time testify first just to accommodate their schedule. But this will help you understand the evidence and how things happen. So let's get right into it. Amie Harwick and Gareth Pursehouse dated back about 10 years ago. And they dated for only about a year and a half, as the evidence will show. In 2012, Amie obtained a restraining order against the defendant and ended the relationship. And then she had no more contact. Amie moved on with her life. She cut off all contact with the defendant. She became Dr. Amie Harwick. She obtained a doctorate in sexual behavior, and then became a licensed marriage and family therapist. In 2020, now we're at the year where these things are going to happen. And the way things happen is her friend, Dr. Hernando Chavez, and her were going to go to a conference. They work as therapists with the adult industry, helping people in that industry who may need therapy. And they were invited to an XBiz show. XBiz is an adult entertainment convention where they award adult entertainers awards. And as therapists, they were invited to conferences there. And she went to one on the 14th, and by going to the conference, you get to go to the awards show. It's a red carpet show. And both Dr. Chavez and Amie Harwick went there, and they were excited to network this. So you're going to hear from Dr. Hernando Chavez, who's going to tell you what happened on that day. They went to the Marriott Hotel. She'll tell you that Dr. Harwick, Amie Harwick, was excited to be there. But that all changed when the defendant was there. The defendant had been hired to work as a photographer. The defendant's actually a computer programmer, but one of his side jobs was to become as a photographer. And he was there. Dr. Amie Harwick did not expect that. And Hernando Chavez will tell you that he went to go get drinks for a moment and left Amie by the red carpet, and then he was called back. He said, "You better get back here. There's a commotion happening." And as he got back there, he could see that the defendant was crying, was upset, and he could see that Dr. Amie Harwick was trying to calm him down. And as he got closer, he heard the defendant tell Amie Harwick, "You ruined my life, bitch." referring to their relationship and how it ended. Dr. Harwick tried to appease him. She was embarrassed about the situation, as Dr. Hernando Chavez will tell you. She tried to appease the defendant at that point, who appeared distraught. At some point, Dr. Hernando Chavez said, okay, it's time for us to go. We talked to him. We need to go to the red carpet, and was able to take her away. From that point on, her demeanor changed. She was making the best of it. She was putting on a face now. She was taking photographs at the red carpet. She went and sat down at her table for the convention. And she was there, but Hernando Chavez will tell you how her demeanor changed. She was stoic. But as this award ceremony was about to end, the defendant approached her again and asked if he could talk to her. She told Dr. Hernando Chavez, let me talk to him, and went a short distance away to talk to him, to try to calm the situation down. At some point, within 45 minutes of that conversation, that ended, and she and Dr. Hernando Chavez left the Marriott Hotel. They went to the parking lot, and she was supposed to go to another show, but she canceled it. She said, I'm not going there. I need to talk to you. We need to go to a restaurant where I need to talk to you about what just happened. And as they got into her car at the Marriott Hotel, she looked behind to see if she was being followed. They then go to the restaurant, and Amie tells them about her interaction with the defendant and how she's afraid of him, and how she needs to increase security at her home, how she needs to get pepper spray or something because of the way he's acting. Obsessive. Dr. Hernando Chavez offered to go with her home. She said, no, it's okay. I'll go home on my own. And then they parted ways. This takes us to the next day. That morning, that same morning, following morning at 3:09 a.m., Dr. Harwick gets to her home and she writes an email to herself. In this email, she documents what just happened with the defendant and her fears of what can happen to her at his hands. She writes, there's a date, January 17, 2020, at 3:09 a.m. Tonight, I felt very scared. I went to the award show with Hernando. When we arrived, we waited in a very long line to do the red carpet. As we were waiting, I saw Garrett walk by with a camera. Clearly, he was working. I decided to ignore him and just not looking at that direction. I thought maybe he could not notice me. I'll show you another part of this email where she states, up and shaking violently, meaning the defendant was shaking violently when he was talking to her.
We all move weight differently. For some, it's just because they can. For others, it's because people said they can't. Whether that's in lifting or in life. We keep showing up, we keep doing the work, and
I was scared and felt like I needed to neutralize the situation. I don't think he was going to attack me in that moment, but this clearly showed me how obsessed he was. He told me that he thinks about me every day, and every day he cries. He told me he lost his job when we broke up because he couldn't work. He told me that no matter what he did, he couldn't stop obsessing over me. He told me that I was a cheater and a liar because he thought we were still together when I believed that we were broken up. He recited text messages that I had sent from this time frame, about 9 years ago. He recited the date, who they were to, and exactly what was said word for word. I couldn't believe it. I was very scared. He said he wasn't able to move on, but he's dated, but nobody with me. He said he thinks about me constantly. She wrote this email to herself. She didn't send it to anyone, as you will hear. At the end of the conversation, I told him my friend Hernando was waiting for me. I asked him how he would like to end this conversation. I told him that we don't have to be brutal enemies. I told him that we will not be friends and we will not be talking, but that we don't have to be enemies. I told him that I was genuinely sorry for anything that I did that was hurtful all of those years ago, and I told him that I forgave him. He asked for a hug, and I told him that was not a good idea. He started to cry. Eventually, he walked away. Fernando and I went towards the escalator to go towards the vehicle. So that's an email that she wrote to herself that's brought in for her state of mind, to show you what her state of mind was right after her interaction with the defendant. Well, that same day, the day after the Extras Awards show, defendant text messages Amie Harwick. He states, I internetted your number, recognize it now, I see it, if I'm allowed. He finds her number on the internet and texts her at that point. Prior to this, you'll see that the phone records, evidence will show that the phone records of Amie Harwick, she was never contacting the defendant. And then he engaged in text messages with her. She culminates that brief interchange of text messages where he wants to talk to her, he wants to meet with her, with the following. Well, first he states, not sure if you're done, because you said, how do we finish this now last night? But if we can meet again, she responds, I think it was really good that we were able to speak last night. I'm sure there's a lot more that you want to process and say to me, but I think that was a lot for both of us. I hope you were able to hear me last night when I said that I was sorry for anything that caused you suffering and that I forgave you for the things that you did to me. I think right now it's best to have some space, and I don't mean that in a negative way. The past is sad and triggering for both of us. I think we ended our talk last night well. We can be civil from distance, respect each other, and move forward with our lives. So that's what she responded to end this conversation with the defendant, but he replied, and you'll have these text messages as part of the evidence, so you're still just gone, which is exactly my nightmare, and sadly what I expected. Amie Harwick, just a little bit later, at around 1:22 p.m., texts Hernando Chavez and tells him, Gareth found my number online and messaged me. I told him I didn't want to talk and wished him the best, but his response was still obsessive and scary. Handyman comes tomorrow for more locks on my windows and ordered pepper spray. These statements are will be brought in to show her state of mind at the time, because she feared the defendant. She further texts, thanks, I set a boundary over text and I'm not responding after that. He keeps texting me and sounds unstable. Well, the evidence will show the defendant continues to text message her at 2 p.m. and at 6:45 p.m. and she does not respond. The following day, she text messaged her good friend Robert Koshland and more statements of her state of mind. I ran into my scariest ex last night of 10 years. He yelled at me in public and then acted really crazy and told me how obsessed with me he was. I tried to de-escalate him. Things he said were very scary. Took safety measures today, but realistically scared for my safety. My anxiety isn't bad now, just realistically thinking something could happen to me. Then you'll hear from Robert Koshland that she provided, she got an app where he could follow the location of her phone. The following day, on 13th, defendant leaves a voicemail message crying, asking to talk to her, that he has so much to say to her. Amie ignores the voicemail message and actually blocks it at that point, so he cannot have any contact with her. She increases home security, gets new locks, security cameras on the mid-level, not on the third level. And then we move on to Sunday.
Looking for your best sunglasses yet? See better this summer with SunGod, featuring market-leading polarized lenses, fully custom colors, and they're guaranteed for life. So go to sungod.co and shop sunglasses.
So at this point, she's blocked his number so he can no longer contact her, as evidence will show. She tells her friend Grace Stanley that she is going to get pepper spray. I blocked him through text message, but because his level of obsession, and I definitely don't think I'm in the clear. I have pepper spray at the house now. My roommate is on alert. I'm upping my home security. That's her state of mind at that point. She tells her roommate, Michael Herman, about her fears and to be on alert. This is the roommate who will testify and will tell you that his room is on the bottom level. The mid-level is like the living room. The third level is her bedroom. She has a home at 2086 Mount Street in the Hollywood Hills. This is a 3D image of what the home looks like. So in this case, you'll be able to know the different levels of the property and where the various rooms are that are going to be relevant in this case. So this will be her back patio, the concrete patio. Her balcony will be on the third level. That'll be her bedroom. The front of the home, the garage, the media room, the TV room on the third floor, the front door, the living room, and French doors. And you see, you'll be able to see that those French doors are recessed behind the door. The back part of the building has Michael Herman's bedroom on the lower level. There's the patio, there's her balcony to her third floor bedroom. Points out to the living room and the media room. Now, in this case, we're going to present evidence of her neighbor's property because evidence will show that that's how the defendant got to her home. So the property to the right in yellow, that is the neighbor's property. There is an empty lot behind that property that goes straight into the street behind it. You're going to hear from one of the tenants of that yellow building who lived towards the back. A week before the defendant broke into Amie Harwick's home, she installed 2 ring cameras in the back portion of that building. That's the home with the vacant lot in the back. Before we get to that, just to place the chronology here, the defendant finds her phone on January 17th. Amie blocks the defendant, and for the next few weeks, there is no contact. Then it's not able to contact Amie Harwick until we get to Valentine's Day. On Valentine's Day, Amie goes out with her girlfriends. And she's going to go out to downtown Los Angeles. And she leaves her home sometime around 7 p.m. Right around the same time, like around 7:10 p.m., defendant is texting Natasha Polson. You're going to hear from Natasha Polson, who will provide copies of her text messages in which she's having conversations with the defendant. And the defendant's texting her about, oh, that's totally fine, busy woman, I'm good, just also trying to get everything under the sun. So this is at 7:10 p.m. on the date of murder, or the date he's going to break into her home. The defendant's residence is in Playa del Rey, about 51 miles from Amie Harwick's home. Amie Harwick's home in the Hollywood Hills on Mount Street is 286. The vacant lot is right behind 2078 Mount Street. That's what the back of that lot looks like. So the next video is, we're going to present it in evidence. It's to show you what those two locations look like. Amy's home and the neighbor's home and the location of the ring cameras. The ring cameras, as the people who present evidence of this, will be significant because it will show the defendant. And in the videos that we expect to be shown to you, the defendant will be wearing gloves.
We've got an iPhone 14 in a mouse case, and we're going to drop it whilst bungee jumping. 3, 2, 1, go! Go! No way!
We are Mouse, famed for our ultra-protective phone cases
Okay!
and the extreme stunts we do to prove just how good they are.
Is that okay?
Our phone cases feature aeroshock protection and MagSafe compatible functionality, all in a slim, sleek package. On iPhone 14 launch day,
No phones here.
So this now shows, that's the first camera that's on a pole. And here's a better look at that particular ring video. You also hear evidence that when you pull down a ring camera down for several seconds, it shuts off and then it resets itself again. Second camera, just a few feet ahead. And the time of these, when this is being done on the camera, is going to show at 8:52 p.m. Then there's another video at 8:53 where the defendant appears to be coming back towards one of the ring cameras. At this point, Michael Herman is in his bedroom on the bottom level. He is asleep, tired. And around this time, after 8:53 p.m., past 9 p.m., he hears what sounds to him like someone dropping a dish or something breaking. He's going to tell you that he thought Amy was at home and that she had dropped something. So he didn't think much of it. Well, detectives will later find, as they will testify to this, that the French doors had glass broken. Photographs were taken of the condition of the French doors, which were broken. And they had criminalists, after this crime occurred, go and take swabs if they found any type of evidence there. And what they found were these smears of blood on the French doors. You're going to hear from criminals who collected swabs from this blood, what appeared to them to be blood, and it was tested, and it came back to defendant's DNA. There was one more blood stain on the floor. That was also tested, and that came back to defendant's DNA. You're going to hear evidence that when defendant broke into her home, that on his person he had a syringe with a brown liquid that detectives will tell you originally they didn't know what it was. That will be, after it's tested by chemists, by the FBI, that's pure nicotine in a pure form. It's a poison. You're going to hear from one of our experts on nicotine who will tell you that was a lethal dose of nicotine that if injected into Amie Harwick, it would kill her. Well, while the defendant is waiting there at the home, Michael Herman is still asleep. I want to show you what the upper level of this home looks like. There's a staircase from the second floor from the living room that leads up to the third floor. On the third floor, you're going to have 2 rooms and a bathroom. Towards the bottom of this, what's shown here, you're going to have the TV room, otherwise known as the media room. Then you're going to have a bathroom and a hallway in between that room and Amie Harwick's bedroom. And then you're going to have the balcony, and over to the left is her walk-in closet. So Amie is with her friends at this time. She's enjoying her evening, but then she's going to leave her friends at about 12:30 a.m. You're going to hear from her friends in this case. And she arrives home and parks her car in her driveway and sends a text message at 1:02 a.m. to Sarah Rollins. Send me the pics on the Greek couch, which she sent at 2:05 a.m. Amie Harwick will not get to see this text message, as evidence will show. So after sending that text at 1:02 a.m., Amie Harwick makes her way into her home. But as evidence will show, even officers who appeared at the scene when they were there that night missed the damage to the French doors. It wasn't readily visible as you go in through that front door. At that time, at around 1:02 a.m. that night, Amie Harwick, when she entered her bedroom, was 38 years old. Defendant Garrett Purcell was 41 years old. She was 5'5". Defendant was 6'4". She weighed about 118 pounds, and he weighed about 230 pounds. So there is no video of what happened on that third floor, but the circumstantial evidence that we will present in this case will show you that her jacket was found in that media room. The necklace she wore that night was broken and in the corner of that media room. That Michael Herman will testify that he woke up to her screaming and to her being thrown down to the ground, or what sounded to him like someone was being thrown down to the ground. From the staircase, he yelled out, "Hey, motherfucker, leave her alone." He didn't know what was happening. He's going to tell you that he didn't know if someone had a gun or what did they have. And that in a panic, and he wanted to go get help. And he ran to the side of the home to go get help. He actually jumped over the gate that was locked and cut himself. And about 8 a.m. So this is 6 minutes after that text message from Amie Harwick that Michael Herman is knocking on the neighbor's door. You're going to hear, and I apologize for having to show you these photographs, but this is some of what the coroner is going to testify regarding some of these injuries. That Amie Harwick sustained injuries consistent with manual strangulation, which was also a contributing factor to her death. She also had assaultive injuries on her neck, particularly strap muscle, hemorrhage, are consistent with manual strangulation. Injuries of her extremities, particularly her fingers and hands, are consistent with the combination of defense and assault type wounds, suggestive of an altercation. Also, in that hallway between the media room and her bedroom, the first officers that arrived found what appeared to them to be a pool of urine. You're going to hear that her fingernails were swabbed later on and tested to see if there was any DNA there. And DNA came back to this defendant, Gareth Pershouse, as you will hear in this case. Circumstantial evidence that we will present to you will show that Amie Harwick was in a debilitated state after she had been strangled and assaulted, and that now her roommate had yelled out. And at this point, the evidence will show the defendant panicked, dragged her body to the balcony, opened the door, and whatever blood he had on his gloves from having hit Amie Harwick, took her to the balcony and threw her body over that 3-story balcony. The evidence will also show that a syringe was dropped right there at that balcony. I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. The cause of death, as the coroner will testify, is, as I said, severe damage, severe trauma from that fall, including damage to the brain, damage to the liver, the pelvis, and including manual strangulation. And the evidence will show that as Amie's body lay there on the concrete, the kitchen door would be left open as officers would see. And there would be a path for the defendant to climb right back from where he came, as a video that we will present in this case will show, back to those ring camera videos. And that ring camera video that we'll present to you in this case will be triggered at 1:11 a.m., about 9 minutes after Amie's last text. Michael Herman will testify that he heard her screaming, that he knew she was being attacked, and heard her thrown to the ground. And he says that.
Do you see anything?
On the
No. Okay, so I heard her screaming, and I heard her being. All right, so I'm gonna send out as somebody screaming, okay? Since you didn't see anything, you don't know if she's being attacked, or you're not sure.
Yes, I know she's being attacked. I heard her thrown to the ground.
Okay, all right, so 2086 Mount Street, is it a house
Yeah.
or an apartment, sir?
It's a house.
Okay. And this is, who's screaming inside?
I can't even think right now. Amie Harwick.
I mean, who is she to you, sir?
She's my roommate.
Okay. And she's screaming for help?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and your name?
Michael Herman.
And what is your callback number, Michael?
I don't have my phone. This is somebody else's phone.
Okay, would it be okay to contact you back at this phone?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right. And so you're also hearing somebody hitting her, is that correct?
Yes, I heard something like that. Yes.
That's evidence we will present here. It's done in one call when Michael Herman testifies. That's at 1:14 a.m. Around this time, we'll also present evidence back to Natasha Polson, who was previously texting with the defendant. Defendant at about 1:57 a.m. texts her back, haha, that's funny, related to some comment she had made. So this is 46 minutes after the defendant has left Amie, who texts this woman back, ha ha ha, that's funny. Later that morning, on February 15, 2020, defendant texts another woman, Angelique Judice, who will testify in this case, and he texts her at about 10:59 a.m., less than 11 hours since he left Amie. Morning, sunshine. Angelique Judice will testify to the text messaging that was going on between them, and that she actually went over to his home at his invitation and then stayed there for several hours until he was arrested later that afternoon. Investigation. You're going to see body-worn video of how officers arrived at the scene within a few minutes. And it's going to be graphic video of Amie Harwick on the ground in her condition. She appeared unconscious. She was going into seizure, and there'll be evidence presented to you of that. Michael Herman will testify that he immediately told officers about Amie's fears of the defendant. Amie would later be transported to Cedars-Sinai, where she would be pronounced dead. Several friends of Amie Harwick identified Gareth Pershouse as a suspect she feared. Detectives obtained the neighbor's ring camera and detective collect Amie's phone and evidence from the crime scene. You're gonna hear from these detectives who will testify as to the evidence they collected. At 4:45 p.m. later that afternoon, defendant is arrested. He's in the company of Angelique Judice, who he has spent several hours with. Photographs are taken of the defendant later that day. And he has several injuries throughout his body, including bruising to what appears to be the knee and cuts on the knee and some bruising, some fresh bruising toward the bicep. Search of the defendant's residence reveals a syringe with the same brand as the syringe left behind at the crime scene. And there'll be other items at that home that we'll discuss during the trial. The detectives are able to obtain defendant's cell phone, but in his cell phone, they are not able to find any of the messages that he sent to Amie Harwick. A few days later, after Amie Harwick has passed away, her friend Robert Koshland is going through her things to collect them for her family. He finds several journals, and in some of those journals, he finds a password for her Gmail account. He goes into her Gmail account with that password and finds that email that Amie wrote to herself. And there's one last paragraph that we will present to you from that letter, which states, "I'm pretty nervous." This is the end of her letter. "I'm pretty nervous that I'm more on his radar now. It terrifies me that he has been obsessed with me for 9 years, thinks of me every day, can't move on, cries and throws tantrums in this way. He is and focused on harming me. However, I'm hoping that this interaction and the listening and giving him time may cause neutralization in his anger towards me." This is back on January 17, 2020. Lastly, this is my last slide. This is my second to last slide. Detectives try to get the liquid in that syringe tested. And you're going to hear testimony that they sent it to the LAPD labs and they're not able to first determine what that is. It's not a controlled substance, meaning it's not a methamphetamine, heroin, what have you. You can even hear in the body-worn video some officers who found it that night, that morning, thinking that it's heroin. They had to send the liquid from that syringe to the FBI to have a more comprehensive test. And there, the FBI determined that it was nicotine in a pure form. Then you're going to hear from our expert, Dr. Benowitz, who's going to tell you that amount of nicotine in that pure form, if injected into Amie Harwick, would have killed her. You're also going to hear that particular poison is not readily detectable, as it wasn't for the LAPD. At the end of this case, I want you to hear all the evidence of this case and everything the defense has to say. At the end of this case, people are going to ask you to come back with a verdict of guilty as to the residential burglary, the murder of Amie Harwick, and the special circumstance of laying in wait during the commission of this murder. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Counsel. Mr. Franjo.
You guys, we have 10 seconds for a quick moving through.
Sure.
Still camera.
I have so much I need to say. Please give me a chance to just say it. So I could have just said it. Please. Please. Can we meet again? It feels the same as when I wrote you. That long list of what I would miss about you and heard nothing back. Just reaching out into the darkness, trying to stop falling. I wish I could do something more, but reaching out to you is a crippling action that I had actually contemplated over the past few months. Just to say to you the word help. Admitting to you how hurt I am is so embarrassing and painful, which demolishes me even more. Please don't vanish on me. Please, please, don't let me go through that again. Please call me. These are the messages that Gareth Pershouse sends Amie Harwick after unexpectedly running into her after having not seen her for nearly 8 years. Running into her out of the blue on January 16, 2020, sent him into a deep, debilitating depression that he was not able to overcome. He was begging with her for help. He was begging and pleading with her for a chance to talk to her. The evidence will show that running into her at that event sent him into a thick fog of depression and made him feel that the only way he could get relief from that pain was to go to talk to her. The ultimate answer that you, ladies and gentlemen, are asked, the ultimate question that you will be asked to answer is what Gareth Pershouse intended to do when he broke into her house on the 14th of February in 2020. The evidence will show that he was reacting from within this fog of depression and that he was going to talk to her. That his only intention that night was to speak to her. The evidence will show that he never intended on killing her. The evidence will show that he is not guilty of first-degree premeditated murder, and he is not guilty of the special circumstance of lying in wait. Amie Harwick and Gareth Pershouse had a romantic relationship from 2009. This began in 2009. They lived together for a little over a year until sometime in 2011. When they split up, Gareth Pershouse was never the same. Losing Amie Harwick sent him into a debilitating, crushing depression. It made it hard for him to function. He even lost a job that he had at the time because of that. The heartbreak that he suffered changed him. He tried to move past it, but he couldn't. He tried to move alongside it by seeking release through exercise, travel, dating other women, but those were only temporary respites. Those didn't work. He distanced himself from other people. He wouldn't let himself become emotionally vulnerable with other women. He had suffered, the threshold had been reached of his heartbreak, and he couldn't risk another one. He wouldn't survive it. So when he sees Amie Harwick on the red carpet, or waiting for the red carpet, at an event that he had been working for many years as a side gig, photographing attendees at this award ceremony that happens every year in downtown Los Angeles, he completely loses control of his emotions. He literally falls to the floor, and he's hyperventilating, he's sobbing, he's shaking, and with Amie's encouragement, he's able to stand up and the two of them walk off and talk. They sit down on a bench, and he's able, through talking to her, to regain his composure. After about 30 or 40 minutes, Miss Harwick's friend, who she came to the event with, Fernando Chavez, comes up to the two of them and says, hey, the red carpet's about to close. If we want to get pictures on the red carpet, we have to go. And so he cuts the conversation short. And to him, it seemed like Gareth was disappointed and upset at having the conversation cut short. Gareth goes and finds his friends that were at the event. You'll hear from them who will say that he seemed distraught, that he was sobbing uncontrollably, that it was pathetic how sad he was from their perspective, and that they told him to pull himself together. He was on the clock. He was being paid to photograph people there that night, and they tried to help him. Later that night, Gareth walks up to the table that Fernando Chavez and Amie Harwick were seated at during the program of the event. He kneels down and he whispers, "Can we talk again tonight?" Amie says, okay. Shortly thereafter, the two of them go back and sit back down on a bench and talk again, a second time. At some point in the conversation, after about 45 minutes, Ms. Harwick tells Gareth, look, I have to go meet my friend, Fernando Chavez. I have to go. He asks if they can meet again, continue talking. She says that's not a good idea. The next day, the 17th, the text messages that I read in the very beginning are sent by Gareth to Amie. He's pleading with her. Please, I need to talk to you again. I need to continue this conversation. The following day, on the 18th, at about 4 p.m., he leaves her this voicemail.
I have so much I need to say. Please give me a chance to just say it so I can accept it. Please. Please.
We all move weight differently. For some, it's just because they can. For others, it's because people said they can't.
Ms. Harwick didn't respond to his pleas for help. She blocked his number. In the days after this encounter, a friend of Gareth's notices that he seems depressed. Elmira Minnesota. To her, it seems that he's down, he's depressed, and so she asks him, "Are you okay?" He says, "I'm rarely okay." He describes his state of mind as if he was having a chain pulling down on him that he likes to, or that he pretends doesn't exist, but that cripples him in so many ways in life. Ms. Minnesota is concerned. Ms. Minnesota is concerned that he might hurt himself. Ms. Minnesota suggests things that he could do to try to alleviate this pain and get over this heartbreak and move past this depression. But because of the depth of depression that he was in and the state of mind that he was in, the only thing that he felt he could do in that moment to seek any sort of release from this depression was to talk to Amie. So on February 14th, he decided he couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't take this pain anymore.
I'm gonna take argument.
Let's just take.
The evidence will show, and circumstantial evidence, text messages, voicemails, observations from other people will show that Garrett felt he couldn't continue living with this pain, and that he needed to finish the conversation that had been interrupted at the XBiz Awards, and that he needed to have this conversation that he so desperately and so kind of sadly begged her for. And that if he wasn't able to have this conversation, that it wasn't worth living, that he wouldn't be able to continue carrying on.
I'm gonna check foundation and
Sustain.
While in this grip of utter despair, he grabs a nicotine-filled syringe from his house.
All right, let's approach.
Searched the house, but they found it on the balcony. And they found it still with
He's down sidebars and he's down adverts. Come on.
One reason, this is a piece of circumstantial evidence that you'll hear a lot about later on in this trial, that now is not the time to get into. But this is a piece of circumstantial evidence. One reasonable inference of him bringing the syringe to her house and inside of her house is that he intended to kill her. Another reasonable inference is that he brought it intending to kill himself. The circumstantial evidence, the messages he sent, the voicemail he left, the observations of other people at the XBiz Awards, the observations of Miss Minnesota, will show that he was in a depressed state of mind. Now, he breaks into her house in this state of mind, and he is waiting there for hours so that he can have this conversation. When Miss Harwick comes home, there's a struggle. As Mr. Arula said, Michael Herman is her housemate. He lives in a room that's on the ground floor. It has a door out to the balcony. And he wakes up to a scream. He wakes up to what he thinks is Amie Harwick screaming. At first, he thinks it's the kind of scream that you would make when you see like a mouse or a cockroach or something. But then he realizes, no, she's continuing to scream. So he gets out of bed and he walks over, or goes over to the foot of the stairs, and he shouts up once, "Amie!" He continues to hear sounds. So he goes into his room and looks for his keys and his phone, which he can't find. He's continuing to hear sounds from above, and he goes back to the foot of the stairs, and he shouts up in up the upward direction, up towards her room on the top floor, "Hey, motherfucker!" And then he runs out through the patio, around the side of the house, through the front courtyard area. And because he couldn't find his keys and his phone, he has to climb up and over this wrought iron fence. He goes and he knocks on neighbors' doors, trying to get help, but no one opens their doors. He eventually sees a stranger walking down the street, and he asks the stranger to use his phone. The stranger calls 911, and the police arrive. 2 officers arrive after a brief discussion with Mr. Herman. The 3 of them climb up and over the wrought iron fence. They go back down the side of the house, and when they round the corner into the patio area, they see Miss Harwick. She's face down. She's non-responsive, gravely injured, but still alive. She's beneath the balcony, which is a little over the floor of the balcony is a little over 20 feet above the patio where Ms. Harwick was found. And, they take Ms. Harwick to Cedars-Sinai, where doctors try to save her life and are unsuccessful. And she tragically passes away that night. You're going to hear from Dr. Scott Luzzi, who performed the autopsy. And he's going to testify that he formed an opinion as to the cause of death. And that the cause of death that he opined, based on his autopsy, was blunt force trauma to the head and torso. That he also found evidence of manual strangulation, and he also found evidence of an altercation with injuries consistent with defensive and assaultive wounds. You're also going to hear from forensic scientist Bob Malik. He is a accident reconstructionist, and he's going to testify that he performed a fall analysis, that he used what's called finite analysis to look at the possible ways in which Ms. Harwick could have arrived in the location that she was at. He's going to talk about the investigation that he did of the scene. He's going to talk about all of the video, photographs, and documents that he reviewed of the police investigation. He's going to talk about how how one can use mathematical equations and scientific principles based on physics and biomechanics to look at the parameters of where someone came to rest and look at their center of mass and their location and orientation and relationship to the things that are in that space, such as, in this case, the balcony, the awning, the house, to identify the possible starting points that could have resulted in her place of rest. And you're going to hear from Mr. Malik that he was able to exclude a number of scenarios, and he was able to identify a number of possible scenarios, two of which are likely. And you're going to hear from Mr. Malik that one of those likely scenarios is that she was hanging from the outside of the balcony.
Objection. Yeah, the court stated that it would allow the possible scenarios. Go ahead.
Right. You'll hear this in great detail from his testimony, how he excluded certain scenarios, how he arrived at other scenarios, and from within those whittled down the scenarios to what are likely based on the science. And one of them is that she was hanging
This is the interlock system from Mouse. For fixing your phone, to your bicycle, or to anything.
Apologies for the quality. You'll see still images using these mannequin dummies like this, and then you also see video representation that corresponds with the calculations and analysis that we did. And you'll see, you'll hear from him and explain the foundation and basis for this, but he'll explain how one of the likely scenarios is that she was gripping the balcony railing with either 1 or 2 feet, using the awning to brace her weight, and fell from that position. You're also going to see a photograph of damage to the awning. Beneath and kind of recessed under the balcony. It's kind of hard to tell there, but there you'll also see a close-up image that shows damage to the front side of the awning in a location consistent with where somebody would place their foot to brace their weight. You're also going to see in this trial this photograph, a photo shoot she did where she's posing here on the balcony. And this is not shown for purposes of the clothing she's wearing or anything like that. But you'll see that she had a certain comfort level with the balcony railing. You'll hear that she was an athletic, acrobatic person and that for years she was a dancer. So, in this trial, you will hear testimony and you will see evidence presented before you that shows you that one likely scenario for how Ms. Harwick came to rest where she did in the patio is that she comes home, encounters Mr. Purshouse, screams, waking up Michael Herman, causing him to go to the foot of the stairs. He shouts up at them. Upon hearing him shouting up, a struggle occurs between Ms. Harwick and Mr. Purshouse. In a panic, she runs through her bedroom to her balcony, climbs up and over the railing, attempts to lower herself or climb down, and is unsuccessful and falls. The evidence will show that, yes, Gareth Purshouse was waiting in her home. He broke into her home. Had he not been there, she wouldn't have died that night. That is not in dispute. He set a chain of actions into motion that led to her death. But the evidence will show that he never intended on killing her. At the end of this trial, the defense is going to ask you to convict him of a crime that fits the circumstances and facts of this case. But the evidence will show that he is not guilty of first-degree premeditated murder, and that he is not guilty of the special circumstance of lying in wait. Thank you.
All right, thank you, counsel. Are you prepared to call your first witness, counsel?
Yes.
You may.
People call Rebecca Kimball.
All right. We'll be taking a break at 3, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, here. Oh, here.
All right, is it Kimball?
Yes.
Yes, if you could raise your right hand, face the gentleman here.
Oh, here.
You solemnly state that the testimony you're about to give and the cause now pending before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Please state and spell both your first and last name.
Rebecca Kimbach, Rebecca Kiembock.
How old are you, Ms. Kimball?
30 years old.
I want to draw your attention back to the date of February 14th, 2020. Prior to that date, did you live at 2078 Mountain Street in the Hollywood Hills?
Yes.
And I have here an area photograph depicting 2086 Mountain Street and 2078 Mountain Street. This is Mark People's next in order, number one.
Number 1, photograph, right?
Yeah.
Yes, all right, Mark.
See that aerial photograph there?
Yes.
You see what it says, 2078 on Mountain Street?
Yes.
Does that depict where you used to live back then in 2020?
Correct.
And what part of the building did you live in?
I lived on the lower level, on the left side. So 2078 right there, just down the stairs.
And what was behind where you lived? What was behind your property?
An empty lot.
I have here a photograph of what appears to be an empty lot. This we mark people's next in order, number 2.
Yes.
You can hear at people's number 2. Can you tell us what is shown there?
That is the empty lot, and through the gate up more brambles up to where I used to live.
And the bottom part of this photograph appears to show some concrete. Is that the street?
I'm assuming so. I never went down there.
But the lot is empty from your home all the way down to where that concrete area is.
Yes.
I'm going to show you a photograph depicting what appears to be the front of that location. Looking here at next in order, Your Honor, photograph.
Year 3.
Equals 3. Do you recognize what is shown there?
Yes, that's my carport on the right, and on the left is my neighbor's house.
You can hear at another photograph depicting what appears to be a walkway. And this we mark people's next in order, people's number 4.
Yes.
It tells what is shown here.
This is the side of the house, and if you follow down the stairs on the left, you get to my front door, and that door up the stairs there is the shared laundry room.
So what I'm pointing to right now on this photograph, right in the middle, appears to be a door, like French door style. What would that be?
That's the laundry room.
And looking here at another photograph depicting a different door, this we mark as people's number 5.
Yes.
And here at people's number 5, it tells what is shown there.
That is my front door, the steps.
Now going back to people's number 4, this photograph showing the laundry room and what appears to be, would this be going towards the back of your home?
This would be going to the back of the home.
Looking at people's, another photograph showing
if you have an hour this week, you can learn 100 songs on the piano by learning just 4 chords. These. Check it out.
And can you feel the love tonight?
Same chords.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me. Sometimes I feel like I don't have a partner.
Exact same chords.
No woman, no cry.
Again, same chords.
Take on me.
It's a photograph of that walkway going more towards the back. And this we mark people's next in order, number 6.
Yes.
Looking at people 6, you tell us what is shown there.
That is the stairs and gate that leads to my front door.
I'm going to bring this photograph over to you. Does this photograph show any cameras that you installed?
Very faintly, you can see the camera that is drilled into the fence on the left.
I'm going to bring, with the court's permission, may I bring this up to the witness? Using this pen, can you just draw a pretty good circle around where there's a camera there?
That's on people 6.
People 6. Zoom in. Looking at people 6, did you draw a circle on something that appears to be on the wood fence to the left?
Yes.
And can you tell the jury, what is that?
That is a Ring camera.
And prior to February 15, 2020, about how much time before that date approximately did you install that Ring camera?
1 week.
And how many Ring cameras did you install?
3.
Looking here at another photograph showing another location towards the back of your building, that this remark people's next in order, people's number
7.
7. I'm going to bring this over to you and ask you, well, first of all, do you see a camera on that photograph?
Yes.
Can you, using people's number 7, draw a circle for that second camera? Just write your initials next to it. For the record, Your Honor, she's on people's number 7. She's drawn a circle and her initials. What appears to be some kind of wood beam. Is that correct?
Yes.
And were all your cameras installed about a week before February 15, 2020?
Yes, they were all installed the same day.
And on February 15, 2020, where were you?
I was in Joshua Tree.
With anyone in particular?
I was with my ex-boyfriend.
And while you were there on February 15, 2020, did something happen?
Yes, I received several calls from my landlord at around 7:30 on February 15th.
And who's your landlord?
Damian Montano.
And where does Damian Montano, where was he living at that time?
He lived above me, upstairs.
So did he live closer to the street, Mount Street?
Yes.
And so what did he tell you?
On the 15th, he called me and asked me if my cameras caught anything. He didn't specify.
Well, let me just state, is based on what he asked you, did you undertake subsequent conduct? Is that what you're introducing for?
Yes.
Did you undertake subsequent conduct after he asked you that question? Did you do something as a result of that question?
As a result of
Yes. Yes.
Yes, okay, overruled, court will allow.
And what did you do?
I checked my phone for notifications to see if I had any motion detected from my Ring cameras.
And did you have any motion detected?
Yes.
And about how many videos did you have that showed that something had triggered your cameras?
4 videos, 4 notifications I received.
And now, are these notifications timestamped?
Yes, they are.
And to your knowledge, when you installed the Ring cameras, did you verify whether the timestamp was accurate?
Yes.
And how did you do that?
A friend and myself, we tested the cameras and spoke through them to see just how quickly I could hear, just to see the accuracy.
And did it appear that the timestamp was accurate?
Yes.
And Your Honor, I have in my hand DVD labeled 2078 Mount Street, 4 videos, date February 14, 2020 and February 15, 2020. May this be marked people's next in order.
Here it is.
Thank you. Now, what did you do with these 4 videos from your Ring cameras?
I emailed them to the police that were at my house when I returned from Joshua Tree.
At about what time did you return from Joshua Tree to your home?
I believe it was around 11:30 or so, and I emailed at 2:45 around then.
When you say 11:30, you mean 11:30 in the morning on February 15th?
Yes.
And then later on, you said at 2:45 you emailed them to detectives?
Yes.
And why did you do that?
Because they were requesting the videos.
Now I'm going to show you one of the video clips. The first one labeled 2051, meaning 851 and ask you if you recognize what's depicted here. Let me see. Was that one of the videos that triggered on your phone?
Yes.
And when I say trigger, what happens on your phone when someone triggers one of your Ring cameras?
I get a notification.
And when you looked at this video, the time, was there anything to you to indicate that the time would not be accurate?
No.
And I'm looking at another video with the title 20:52:42, meaning 8:52 p.m. Do you recognize this video? Do you recognize that video?
Yes.
How so?
It was also another notification I received.
And as far as these Ring cameras, what happens? Have you ever done that? What we see here being done to your camera where someone covers it? Do you know what happens to that, to the camera?
I believe that it stops the motion, it stops recording.
Objection, foundation, speculation.
Sustained at this point. You say you believe. What makes you believe that?
Motion is stricken.
It's stricken. So, counsel, go ahead.
Okay. Have you ever tried doing that to the camera?
No.
Have you seen anyone else do that to the camera?
No.
Have you ever had anyone cover your cameras in that way?
No.
Objection, relevance, 352.
Overruled.
Did you recognize the person that was in those videos?
No.
Did you ever give that person permission to enter your property?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
You can answer that.
No.
Did you ever give that person permission to cover up your cameras?
No.
Now let me play a video clip titled 20:53, meaning 8:53 p.m. Let me know if you recognize this video clip. Do you see the timestamp there at the bottom?
Yes.
And as far as you were concerned, the timestamp on your camera was accurate.
Yes.
And how do you know that?
Based on previous tests of the cameras.
How would you test the camera?
When I first installed them, my friend and I spoke to each other through the camera and my phone. It was as though we were FaceTiming. It was exact.
Let me play the final video clip, which is titled 01:11, meaning 1:11 in the morning. So if your camera's not covered, it will continue to record.
Yes.
Objection foundation.
Just based on her previous answer.
Motion to strike.
Well, I'm saying based on the video that we're seeing.
Well, stricken. Well, that video, no one blocked it. That the court will note. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break, if you will, please. Thank you. Obviously, Monday's a holiday, right? I forgot all about that, so yes. And tomorrow, normally 9:30, 9:40, because I have a doctor's appointment at 8. I should be,
It's a you get approach the witness stand down here, please. I'll ask you to face my clerk. Raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly state that the testimony you're about to give and the cause now pending before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Please state and spell out both your first and last name.
My name is Hernando Chavez, HERNANDOCHAVES.
All right, Mr. Traveler.
Dr. Chavez, I'm going to show you a photograph. This can mark people's number 9.
9, yes.
Photograph of a woman. See that there?
Yes.
Do you recognize who's depicted in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And who is that?
That's Dr. Amie Harwick.
And what was Dr. Amie Harwick to you?
She was a friend and colleague.
And prior to 2020, how long had you known her?
We've known each other approximately 10 years.
How did you meet?
We met in a professional capacity initially. She had reached out to me because she was a newer therapist, and I was a therapist who had practice and a supervisor and sort of established in Los Angeles. So she reached out for networking purposes.
Did you and her go to the same school?
Yes, we did, but at different times.
And did she obtain a doctorate at that particular school?
She did, yes.
All right, doctor, just keep your voice up a little. I want all the jurors to hear, if you would. Please. Speak into the microphone, if you would.
As for the last question, Your Honor, objection hearsay.
Well, which is? Just look at the question here. Overruled. Answer stands.
Did you obtain your doctorate from the same school?
Yes, I did.
And was a doctorate in what?
Human sexuality.
And did Ms. Harwick, to your knowledge, also obtain her doctorate in that particular field?
Yes, she did.
You mentioned that she was a therapist.
Yes.
What type of therapist was she?
She was a licensed marriage and family therapist.
What does that mean?
Objection foundation.
Overruled.
What type of therapist are you?
I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Tell the jury, what does that mean?
Licensed therapists are overseen by the Board of Behavioral Sciences in California, where they make sure that those who are within their organization of being licensed have the education, training, and experience to obtain a license, and therefore for the public be seen as licensed therapists.
I'm going to ask you to speak a little louder so the jurors back here can hear you.
Sure.
And prior to 2020, did you and Dr. Amie Harwick would you meet in a professional capacity?
Yes.
And how so?
Various ways. We would meet for coffee or have phone calls where we would have case consultations. It's a part of our profession to reach out for support with therapy clients. It's a standard, an ethical standard that we are obliged to. We would also go to conferences together, attend workshops together, and events that were related to our license and our CE units, which are necessary for us to renew licensure.
Did you practice therapy with Dr. Harwick, or did she have her own practice?
She had her own practice.
Your Honor, do we need the photo up?
Can we what?
Do we need the photo up?
Well,
It's not a problem.
Speaking of Dr. Harwick, prior to 2020, did you work with the adult entertainment industry in your capacity as a therapist?
Yes.
Relevant.
Like today's foundational?
Yes.
Okay.
You can answer that.
Yes.
How so?
I would do advocacy work within the adult industry, both political advocacy and mental health advocacy.
What does that mean, mental health advocacy?
To try and bring resources to the adult industry community, which for as a marginalized community, they oftentimes don't have support systems that are in place for to meet their needs.
And was there any particular group that you belonged to back in 2020 that would do something?
One of the main mental health supports right now in the adult industry is called Pineapple Support.
And did you belong to that group?
I was adjacently supporting them. I did not list myself under their website because I had a friendship with their president and vice president, so I found it to be a conflict of interest to accept clients from them. However, I did support them through donations and also seeking out additional therapists that sort of have human sexuality training and can be beneficial for their organization, for their nonprofit.
Did Dr. Amie Harwick, did she belong to that organization?
Yes, she was listed under their website as a Pineapple Support therapist.
What does that mean?
It's a therapist that has been vetted by the organization to make sure that it meets the needs of having sex education, human sexuality training, and a affirmative view of the adult industry so that they aren't, clients aren't exposed to people who may be judgmental or harmful to these clients.
Objection foundation as to the vetting by the organization that he's not a friend.
And as part of that group, were you invited to anything around January of 2020?
Yes.
And what was that?
In various capacities, different conferences and different workshops. So I had given suicide awareness presentations on behalf of Pineapple Support. I had done workshops around boundaries and mental health support for Pineapple Support. They also would.
Well, I don't want to belabor this, but did you get invited to something?
Yes, I was invited to the XBiz conference and awards.
And was anyone else invited?
Dr. Amie Harwick was also.
And did you attend any conference? Was there an awards show at the end of these conferences on January 16, 2020?
Yes.
And prior to that, were there some conferences at the same location?
Yes.
And what location was that?
This was at the Andaz Hotel on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, was where the workshops were from Monday through Thursday. And then Thursday evening, they had an awards ceremony that was in downtown LA at the JW Marriott at LA Live.
And did you attend any of the conferences before the awards event?
I did not.
Do you know if Dr. Amie Harwick attended any of the conferences?
Yes, she did attend and was also a speaker in a panel.
Now, if you are part of this group or you present at a conference, do you get invited to the awards show?
Yes.
And did you get invited to the awards show?
Yes.
To your knowledge, did Dr. Amie Harwick get invited to this awards show on January 16th?
Yes.
And did you and her plan to attend the awards show together?
Yes.
How did that happen?
The iPhone 15 is coming, and this is a mouse case. As usual, we are completely fine.
The new iPhone is coming, and this year We are not just launching new mouse cases. Introducing the Mouse Investor Movement. We're allowing our community to invest in mouse, get shares in the business, and join us on the mission to become the household name in tech accessories. We couldn't believe the impact of our last campaigns. Over 6,000 global investors, including Brewdog founder James Watt.
Our initial plan was to meet up together and she would drive us to downtown LA. We both lived near Hollywood. And then our plan was to then go our separate ways as she had different plans afterwards. She was going to go to a burlesque show to take pictures of a friend because she had a passion for photography.
Let me get this straight. So the plan, so as you were concerned, was you would meet with Amie Harwick, go to the XBiz Awards, and later on she would go to a different show.
Yes.
And, well, did you and her go together to the XBiz Awards show on January 16, 2020?
Yes, we did.
And how did you get there?
I Ubered to her house and she drove us both to downtown LA to the Marriott.
When you say you Ubered to her house, is this the house located at 2086 Mount Street in the Hollywood Hills?
Yes, it is.
And what kind of car was she driving back then?
She was driving a two-door sports car, kind of dark, maybe a Scion or something sporty.
And did you and her drive to downtown LA to the awards show?
Yes.
And how would you describe her demeanor as you're going on the show?
Very excited. She was thrilled.
Why would you say that?
She has heard me tell stories about the industry, and this was her first event, her first awards show, and I had been previously to a number of them. She was also excited about the red carpet. Having a history of being a model, she loved the red carpet. She loved taking photos, and she was very excited about walking the runway. The red carpet, excuse me.
How would you describe her demeanor at that point before getting to the awards show?
Very talkative, very excited, energized, talking about the different people she wanted to meet. And we kind of devised our own little plan of trying to meet different folks that she was wanted to connect and network with.
You're going to have another document. It has 7 pages, all photographs. Maybe mark people's next in order. People's number 10.
A through.
Pages 1 through.
Well, we'll make them A,
We'll
the
make
letters. It'll be 10, people's 10, A through.
I could just have one moment.
Yes.
A through G.
All right.
10.
All right.
Looking here at page A of people's 10, do you recognize what's depicted there?
Yes.
Okay, what does that show?
That is the XBiz Awards we attended together, and that is the red carpet.
And how long was this red carpet?
You mean the event or
No,
the actual carpet?
The length of the red carpet.
About 20 yards.
And did anything happen while you were at the red carpet?
When we arrived, we initially got in line because we ran a few minutes late, and she was excited about those pictures on the red carpet. There was about 40 people in line, so we knew it was going to be a long wait. So we immediately went to the line, and that was our first as we walked in.
And looking at page 2 of this exhibit.
It's B.
Yes, I'm sorry, B.
Yes.
People's 10. Can you tell us what is shown here?
That is the walkway. So to the right of that photo is the red carpet, and this is to the left of it, and it's this walkway between the ballroom and the red carpet. So in that walkway, there are a number of drink stations and doors that lead into the ballroom. So on either side, you have the red carpet to the right and the ballroom to the left. This is from the opposite side of the line.
And did anything happen at this point?
So when we arrived, the first thing we did as we were in line, had a few friends who were right in front of us. I took a drink order. I said, I want to buy everybody a drink, and took the order. And once I got that order, I walked down this path that's listed, and I got in line for the bar.
This question was, did anything happen?
If it's okay, Your Honor, I think this is an explanation.
So you want a chronological explanation?
Yes.
All right.
So then you went to the bar to get this drink order. And where did you leave Amie when you went to the bar?
She was in line with the friends that I had that we had met, that we found there. So she was with other people.
And how long were you at the bar area before something happened?
Approximately 10 minutes into me waiting in line at the bar, I received two phone calls from a friend.
What's the name of this friend?
I'm sorry?
What's the name of the friend?
Ashley Jemison.
Can you spell that?
ASHLEYJEMISON.
Does this person go by other names?
She has a stage name as well.
What's the stage name?
Her stage name is Aubrey Kate.
And what happened at this point?
The first phone call, when she called, I couldn't hear. It was a lot of loud commotion. It was chaotic. So I couldn't understand, and I hung up. And then 30 seconds later, I received another phone call from her as well. And all I could hear amongst the chaos, or the sounds that were sort of the loud sounds, was, "Get the F over here."
Cold calling works. You just need better data. Cognizant, emails and phone numbers for your...
What did you do?
I immediately went back to the line.
And when you went back to the line, how far away is the line from the bar?
I was probably 25 yards away from that portion of where they were at in the line.
Once you went back to the original location, what did you see?
It took me a couple of minutes to kind of weave through the different people that were standing there and blocking my route. When I got there, I saw Amie and the defendant were walking away from the line together.
When you say the defendant, you see the person you saw there that night here in court today?
Yes.
Can you please point him out for the jury, describe what that person's wearing today?
He's wearing a blue suit and glasses.
What color shirt, sir?
A white shirt as well.
Right, identify the defendant.
And as you approached them, did you hear anything being said?
Initially seeing them walk away, I first checked in with my friend who called me, and she told me, "This guy is freaking out on your friend." So I then walked over to where the two of them had walked to, and they had...
When you say the two of them?
Dr. Amie and Gareth Perthhouse.
And then as you walked over there, what, if any, did you hear?
As I was walking towards them, the only words I heard was, "You ruined my life, you bitch." And as I got closer, they both stopped. They both looked at me, and I checked in with her and said, "Is everything okay?" And she said, "Everything's okay. I'm going to be right here talking." And so I went back to the line and waited for her. I also said, "I'll wait in line for you." And so I waited and kept her place.
Let's go back to the statement that what was the statement again?
"You ruined my life, you bitch."
Looking here at people's photograph C of this exhibit, do you recognize who's shown there?
Yes.
And who is that?
That's the defendant, Gareth Perthhouse.
Is that the way he looked at the X-Biz Awards show on January 16th?
Yes, I remember the red shirt and the jeans. Yeah.
And so how would you describe, were you able to see his face when he said, "You ruined my life, bitch"?
They were profiled, so they were looking at each other as I was walking up, so that they did not see me as that. I heard that.
Were you able to see what his demeanor was when he said, "You ruined my life, bitch"?
It was hostile and angry and elevated. And then when they both made eye contact that I was walking over, they both put it back together. He calmed himself down very quickly in that moment.
And then what happened?
After I checked in and she shared that she was going to be there and talking, I went back to the red carpet and waited for about 45 minutes until I got closer to the entrance to the red carpet. And in the meantime, I was checking over at the two of them talking, periodically, every minute or 2 minutes.
Why were you doing that?
I was concerned.
What were you concerned about?
The angry, hostile statement, if someone calls your friend a bitch, that was alarming to me. That raised a red flag for myself, and I wanted to make sure she was okay.
So you kept a view of her?
Yes, she was in the line of sight the entire time I was in the line.
About how far away was she from you?
30 to 35 yards.
And did you see anything happen during that time when you're watching her from that distance?
Obviously, I could not hear anything else because I'm so far away, but I could observe nonverbal movements for both of them. I noticed she had her hands clasped together in her lap.
Her two hands.
Her two hands were clasped together, and she was seated in a way that was kind of leaning into the conversation. So she was, in my opinion, non-threatening and trying to just looked calm. The defendant, Gareth Pursehouse, had much more animated movements with the hands. So there was times where the hands went on the head, times when the hands covered the face and then were in his lap, bending forward into his lap. And there was just more movement to reinforce whatever was being said.
And if the record could just reflect that the witness was placing his hands in front of his face, a couple inches up in front of his face, first above his head, then in front of his face, and then lean forward.
All right, thank you.
And what happened after that?
A bell went off to signify that the show was starting. So it's like a 5-minute or a 10-minute warning for people.
What time was the show supposed to start?
It's supposed to start, I think, at 8 o'clock, but they ran late, so it was probably closer to 9.
And what did you do once the bell rang?
Once the bell rang and I was very close to the red carpet, I just made the decision to walk over there and intervene and let her know, hey, the red carpet's about to close. This is your last chance. So I did walk up to them and I interjected and said, the red carpet is about to close. Do you want to come do your pictures? I've been waiting in line this whole time. And she said, yeah, just give me a second. And then I moved away to give them their space and went back to the line. And then she came over about 2 minutes later.
And before she came over 2 minutes later, approximately how long had she been talking to the defendant before that?
About 45 minutes.
And how would you describe her demeanor once she left the defendant and met up with you?
Totally changed.
What does that mean?
She went from initially coming into the show excited, talkative, enthusiastic, full of energy, as we all typically know her if you're in her life. And when she walked up to me, she was almost like a ghost. She was very stoic. I keep thinking back to the word that felt right, and it felt like she was on autopilot. She was just coasting and moving through the motions of walking and taking pictures and talking, but
Objection narration at this point, Your Honor.
All right, that'll stand. Counsel, your next question.
Yes. Was she able to take pictures on the red carpet?
she did, yes.
Looking here at people's photograph D. You recognize what's shown here?
Yes.
What is that?
That is Dr. Amie on the red carpet.
And it appears that she's smiling in the photograph. Is that correct?
Yes.
When she wasn't taking photographs, did she appear happy?
No.
Why would you say that?
It felt fake. It would be like me smiling right now. I don't feel like smiling, but I could if I needed to. And that's what I picked up from her, a fake expression to get through the pictures and the evening.
And so after she took pictures at the red carpet, what happened after that?
She moved along the red carpet. I also took photos as well of her, and I was kind of with her the entire way. Then we moved to our seats as we had a table that we were going to be sitting at.
Looking at photograph E, do you recognize what's shown there?
Yes, this is the ballroom at the Marriott where the awards were held.
And so would you have a table in this area?
Yes, we had 2 seats at the table right in front of the picture.
Looking at photograph F, you recognize what's shown here?
Yes.
Can you tell us what is shown here?
That is myself and Dr. Amie seated together at the table taking a photo.
Is this a selfie? Or someone took this photo?
It might be a selfie. Yeah, it looks like my arm.
And so how would you describe her demeanor at the time now she's at the table?
Loss of energy, unenthusiastic, not talkative, a very different person than who arrived there.
Did you see her take photos with friends?
She did take some photos with people. Yeah.
And about how long did this show last?
The show was approximately 2 hours.
And did anything happen before the conclusion of the show?
About 10 minutes before the show ended, and we know that it ends because there's a program. The defendant, Gareth Pursehouse, approached our table and knelt down next to Amie and spoke in her ear.
Could you hear what he was saying to her?
I could not.
And did anything happen as a result of that?
After they exchanged a quick conversation, she turned to me and said, "We're going to keep talking after the show."
So what happened?
So then the show ended, and she told me where she was going to be, which was the same bench, the same area where they were speaking before the show. And because that area had everyone leaving the ballroom was going to be walking by that area, it was very public, and she felt safe there, and we agreed that's where she would speak.
Narration.
Well, the court will allow, not on that grounds, the court will allow to stand.
So were you able to see where they went to go talk?
I remained in the ballroom for some time.
At some point, were you able to see where they went to go talk?
Yes, I did go check on her.
And what point was that?
Maybe 10 or 15 minutes into the ending of the show.
What did you see?
I saw them seated at the same bench, continuing their conversation.
How would you describe Amie Harwick's demeanor during that conversation?
Very similar. I call it therapist mode. She was engaged, and you could see a de-escalation experience of her trying to navigate and calm the situation.
Speculation.
Well, did you sustain, and unless you heard the conversation?
Motion to strike.
Well done. Did you hear the conversation?
I did not hear any conversation.
Okay, so you're basing that on what?
Nonverbal observation.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Motion to strike.
It's stricken.
How would you describe the defendant's demeanor when you observed him who appeared to be talking to Ms. Harwick?
You know, in that moment, I just checked to make sure they were seated there, and then went back to and left. So I didn't take a lot of time to see the nonverbal of their conversations outside of the two of them talking and leaning into each other.
And the location where they were talking, was there traffic around it, people traffic?
A lot of traffic and a lot of people walking by there.
Why would you say that?
It was to leave the ballroom, you'd have to take this corridor to the escalator that would take you downstairs to the lobby area. So everyone had to go through the escalator, or they could walk a lot farther and go down the elevator. So you had to walk by them.
And at some point, did you go talk to Amie Harwick while she was talking to the defendant?
We exchanged text messages, so I didn't approach the two of them. I only sent messages to check in and ask how you're doing. Are you okay? And she would respond, "We're still talking," or "I'm okay."
How much time did that go on?
Probably about 30 minutes after the show ended. Most people had already left, so I moved out towards the area that they were at. And I grabbed a chair and I sat down and just was in the line of sight, just kind of waiting and watching.
Just to be clear, you said 30 minutes. Were you referring to how long the second conversation took?
From the end of the show till the time I moved out to sit down in that outside area where they were talking was about 30 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
And so now you're seated, watching Dr. Harwick and the defendant talk.
Yes.
And how long does that go?
Probably for another 20 minutes.
So you're able to see her.
Yes.
And after 20 minutes, what happens?
Nobody was left. The cleaning crew was picking up the tables, and registration had been broken down, the registration tables and area. I just felt like it was time to go, that this had been a long time, and so I decided to walk up to them and let her know that I think it's time to wrap up and we should get going.
About what time was this, approximately?
About midnight.
And so did you do that?
Yes.
What did you say?
Just like that, I think it's time for you two to wrap up. We should be getting going, and gave them another couple of minutes to wind down and wrap up their conversation. And then the two of them stood up, and then her and I proceeded to walk towards to the escalator and then go downstairs to her car.
This would be the parking lot?
There's a parking structure that underneath the hotel, yes.
And did you make it to that car?
Yes, we did. We arrived at her car.
And on the way there, did anything happen?
She didn't want to talk. And
What does that mean, she didn't want to talk?
I'm just asking, how did things go? What was that all about? And she didn't really want to speak. She was in a hurried rush to get to the car.
So did you rush to the car?
We did.
And
We didn't stop anywhere, talk to anyone. We just went directly to the car.
when you got to the car, did anything happen?
Once we sat down in the car, she had this big sigh, and she then told me who it was, because originally she had just said it's an ex. And then she shared with me which ex it was. And in that moment, we talked about, she mentioned, I'm not going to this burlesque show any longer. I told her I won't go see any other friends. And we.
Good.
So, it was overruled. Sorry.
It was, yeah.
So we decided to go to a diner to talk.
And before leaving the parking lot to go to the diner, did anything happen? Did she express anything at that point?
She was scared and worried she was going to be followed.
How do you know that?
She told me. And both her and I both looked in the side mirrors and turned our heads to make sure no one was following us outside of the parking structure.
Did she indicate to you who she feared would follow her?
Yes.
What did she say?
Gareth.
And where did you go after that?
50% of medical school applicants in the UK get rejected.
I studied medicine abroad because I didn't get the grades needed in the UK.
I studied dentistry.
We got on the freeway and we went to a diner in Burbank called Bob's Big Boy.
A lot of people recognize that. So, around what time is this when you get to the Bob's diner? Bob's Big Boy?
Approximately 12:30 a.m.
While at the diner, does she tell you anything related to her fear that night?
She told me the story of the interaction, of what they talked about, and her fear and her being afraid.
Can you tell us what she told you in regards to her fear?
She told me that she was scared, that she had long felt fear regarding this ex.
And did she tell you that whether anything from that particular night caused her fear?
Because she had shared that they had not spoken for a number of years, this brought up a wave of fear. And a big part.
Let me stop you there. Did she indicate to you whether she was going to take any precautions as a result of having this fear?
A big part of our conversation was how to protect yourself from.
Can you tell the jury what you and her discussed about her protecting herself?
We discussed boundaries and a safety plan. And within that safety plan, we discussed having someone reinforce her locks, both on her doors and windows, We discussed her getting mace or pepper spray. We discussed her getting a taser and also the possibility of her purchasing a gun for protection.
So she expressed to you that she felt those things were necessary to protect herself?
Yes,
And protect herself from who?
from Gareth Burr's house.
How long were you at the diner with her talking about this?
About 2 hours. We left around 2:30 a.m.
How did you feel about her telling you this, that she wants to get a pepper spray, a gun and all that?
Objection relevance.
Interesting.
How was her demeanor when she's telling you?
Her demeanor?
Yes. When she's telling you, she's thinking about getting pepper spray, taser gun, a gun.
Very different than the Amie I knew. The Amie I knew had a lot of confidence and empowerment and strength, and she was frail and fragile and scared and worried.
How long were you there at the house?
Approximately 2 hours.
And after that, what happened?
After that, we wrapped up our meal. She dropped me off at home, but as we were leaving, I offered to stay with her if she would like me to stay at her house with her.
Why did you do that?
I was concerned and fearful for her. She was obviously scared and frightened, but also we're having these incredibly deep and painful conversations around safety plans and protecting herself. So I wanted to offer that, and I felt the protective instinct of that coming up for myself.
And so when you offered that, what did she tell you?
She told me she feels comfortable because she has a male roommate at her home, and there wasn't a need for me to stay over.
And so did she drop you off at home?
She dropped me off at my home, and then she went home. And we exchanged text messages when she arrived.
And sometime after that, did you and her start exchanging other types of text messages?
The next day, she sent me a few messages following up with both our conversation and also updates.
I'll show you People's Exhibit 10, photograph G. You see that there?
Yes, I do.
And do you recognize what's shown here?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is Dr. Amie messaging me on January 17th, the following day after the awards show, that Gareth found her number online.
And is this a text exchange you were receiving from Amie Harwick around January 17, 2020 at about 1:22 p.m.?
Yes.
And obviously some parts here are blocked out. You did not do that.
I did not do that, no.
But to get to this, for example, there appears to be one text with the date of January 17, 2020, 1:22 p.m. And then there's another screenshot of a text in the middle. Do you see that?
Yes.
Whose text message is that?
Amy's messages are on the left, which are not blacked out, and my messages are on the right, which appear to be blacked out.
And ladies and gentlemen, the reason it's blocked out is the court has ruled on the admissibility of it, so you're not to speculate what it was and the reasons why it was blocked out, if you would. Okay? Go ahead, Council.
Okay. And is this the message you received from her around 1:22 p.m.? Gareth found my number online and messaged me. I told him I didn't want to talk and wished him the best, but his response was still obsessive and scary. Handyman comes tomorrow for more locks on my windows and ordered pepper spray.
Yes, that was Dr. Amy's text message to me.
And you gave her a response?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and then she texts you back after that, what appears to be on the right side. Thanks, I sent a boundary text, and I'm not responding after that. He keeps texting me and it sounds unstable.
That is Dr. Amy's text message to me.
Your Honor, may we briefly approach?
Briefly. Ladies and gentlemen, let's call it a day. We're gonna remain here and discuss an issue here. Back tomorrow at 9:40. Have a safe evening. We'll see you. Stay off the internet and social media if you would. Thank you. Have a good evening.
There you go, everyone. That is day 1. And we will be back tomorrow to do day 2. So I will see everyone tomorrow over here. And I've got a nice thing that I can now use that Michelle sent me to use on TikTok to try and bring the traffic over. So I will see you guys later on. Bye.